Okay, so the important thing is that there is no yes or no for what, how to publish great paper or not. It's, you know, it's always a lot of gray area. Sometimes you do excellent job, but the editor does not get it, does not understand your point. Sometimes you're just, your paper is sent to somebody that is not in the field, so they don't know what's good or bad. But the advice I can give you is a general advice that maybe can help. The most important thing is you do what is interesting for you. You work what is interesting for you, and then you try your best to write a paper and submit it. So what I'm saying is that there's no really clear answer. Now, the first thing that you need to consider if you want to have a paper published in a very good journal is that you need to make sure or to do something that is really in hot fields or in interesting fields. For example, these days there is a lot of activity about alternative energy. So there's a lot of interest in hydrogen energy. There's a lot of activity in energy storage, in new batteries, and new technologies to make batteries. So if you work in these fields, this is something that can open doors for good journals. That's one thing. The other thing is, if you select something, some scientific project, some experiments to do, you need, or that at least what I do and what I tell my students, try to find a problem that will make an impact. It will be something really new. It's more difficult. It might take more time, but then it will be important. Let's say you developed, or somebody developed, a sensor for ammonia. So there is an interesting technology for a sensor for ammonia. Now, if you take the same sensor and show that this can be used for ethanol, this probably will not go to such a good journal, because the technology exists and you show application for ammonia or for ethanol or for something else. It's not a lot of impact. It's not new. But if you show that you get a new sensor that can be used for ammonia or ethanol or whatever, then this is more interesting. And if you have a sensor for PFAS, remember we talked before lunch on these bad chemicals, bad plastic in water? It's called PFAS. If you develop a sensor for PFAS, which is very important, then immediately people will be, and editors will be more interested, because the problem is very important. So this is one suggestion. When you think of your project, of your scientific experiments, try to think of something that will be new, everything is new, but try to think of something that will be very new. Not applying something to a different problem, but finding completely new solution. Again, this is very easy to say. It's more difficult to do. But if you really want to publish papers in really good journals, try to think about it. Don't do something incremental. Don't do something small. If you do some small advance, small step, small contribution, it will likely go to a less important journal. So try to think of problems that will be very interesting, very relevant to the reality of today, and very new. That's my first advice. Now let's say you found some problem that is very new. You got experiments that were excellent, and you're ready to write the paper and submit to a journal. Now, there's several things that you need to do in terms of a good paper for putting it together. The first important thing is what will be inside the paper. And this is actually also related to your project. This is something that I see in many cases as an editor. In many examples, people describe wonderful things. They have very good observation. They find good measurements. They find new batteries. They find new sensors. They have new hydrogels, new materials. It's great, but that's not enough. Something very important in good paper is mechanism. The mechanism in many cases can be very difficult because you need to think what techniques to apply. Some techniques, you might not have them in the university. When I have some problem like that, when I do in my own research, sometimes I go to a different university to do the experiments, or I send my students. Sometimes I even send my students to Europe to do experiments. Because having a good mechanism, what is the reactions? How the materials is strong, how the battery is working, how the sensor is such a good sensor. This is very important to make a good paper. Because just to present observations, as good as they're going to be, you get fantastic properties. The material is very strong. The membrane is very porous. The sensor is extremely sensitive. This is very nice, but it's not enough. So you always need to think of the mechanism. How? Always try to answer the how it happens. This is really a crucial part of good chemistry papers, to find a mechanism. Again, it's not easy. Sometimes it's the most difficult part of the research, because you need to think what experiments I will do. How will I explain the experiment? Do I need to do 10 techniques? I'm exaggerating, but maybe you need to do this and that and different aspects. But this is something very important, and in many cases, this separates a good paper from a very good paper. Okay? Now, regarding these mechanisms, in many cases, not in many cases, in some cases, it's also good to have a computation aspect, some theory. Now, I don't know anything about computation. I don't know how to do theoretical chemistry, for example. But think about it, that if you have people that you collaborate that can do calculations, this can help in many cases. It can give you a good figure in the paper. So editors, when they look at papers, they want to see how you address the problem from various angles. You need to explain the concept. You need to have good results. You need to have the mechanism. And sometimes you need to have nice figure of that you use computational strategies or computational techniques. So this is something that you should remember. It's very important to have the mechanism. Now, in terms of the structure of a paper, maybe I'll show you one structure of a paper, of my paper, and you'll see what I mean. I'll try to, 1 minute, I will try to find a paper that has a mechanism. Okay? See, let's try to find a paper with one of my Indian postdocs. I'll try to find it. I don't promise I'll find it because I have many papers, but I will try. Let's see. Okay, let's look at this paper, for example. This is a paper we published, I think, last year. It's a very nice paper. It's nothing that I talk here. You see, it was published in Nature Communication, which is a very good impact factor, I think 16 or something. This is something to do with biology. But let me show you what is going to be the best structure of the paper. Okay? Now, when you write an abstract, of course, I'm not going to teach you how to write an abstract. You write an abstract that will give you the main points of the paper. What I'd like to show you now is how you build the figures or the structure of the paper. Now, one thing, this is actually not such a good example, but one thing, in my opinion, that's very important in papers is to have many pictures, many schemes, because people like to see nice drawings. In our hearts, we're just like children. We like pictures. So usually in papers, the first figure I do, I make a drawing of the concept. What is the big plan? So for example, here, you can see I make a little drawing that shows the concept of the paper. In this case, we have some antibiotics, we have some nanofibers, and these nanofibers, they break the antibiotic, they catalyze hydrolysis of the antibiotic. And this is a very simple picture, very easy to see, and it explains your story. Okay? Before you even show any results, just make a picture, make a drawing. Okay? So this is the first figure. And then we have some results. Okay, we did some results. That's the next step. Okay, you're showing all your beautiful results. Very important results. I personally don't like complicated figures. I try to make it simple figures. And if you have a lot of data, try to separate into separate figures. Okay, so these are the results. And then remember, I told you about the mechanism. This figure is a mechanism figure. And remember I told you about the calculations? This figure is a mechanism using calculations. But what I'm saying, this is very important that, again, very visually, we explain the mechanism. This is a molecule sitting like this. Then there is catalysis, and then they break. That's the other important part of a paper. If I can give you one advice, when you are ready to write a paper and everything is ready and you have great results, one figure, first figure, is the scheme of the concept. The last figure, a mechanism. Okay? So here you have a mechanism, and I think that's the last figure. Maybe not. Let's see. Yes? Oh, actually, we have more results. Yeah, but basically, that was the mechanism. Okay? Let's try to find another paper. Let's see here. I'm not sure if this one has what I meant. Okay, this is a paper. Here, again, you have a figure here. Actually, another important thing about papers in chemistry, if you have molecules, if you have new molecules, show the synthesis. Okay? So again, what we have here, we have a new molecule. This is the concept. Okay, I explain what is the concept, first figure. Then we have the results. And actually in this case, and here we have the mechanism. Okay? What else can I tell you? Try to, if you're not so good about English text, okay, it's important to send it to somebody that can do editing, English editing. Because in many cases, editors and reviewers, if they see that the English is not so good, they think that the science is not so good. And it's not fair. Because sometimes you have great science and great papers, but maybe the sentences are not so good. So, it's important to have really good text, good editing. So if you can, try to do some polishing, some editing, trying to have good text. That's also very important. Okay? What else? Don't make too long papers. Again, depending on your project, on the results, depending on the journal. I usually think that 6 figures is okay. 5 to 6 figures. You don't need a paper with 10 figures unless it's really something very special. Make a very focused story. Say in the beginning, in the drawing in the beginning, what's important, what's the discovery, what's the impact. Okay? That's actually also very important to mention it clearly in the abstract. Say in the abstract, we made for the first time this and that. We made a new material that is best material for energy storage. Something like that. Don't be too arrogant. Don't say something that we found medicine for cancer. Okay? Because then people will say, okay, these people, they don't know what they're talking about. So don't be arrogant, but make a statement about why your work is so important and what's the impact. This study will make batteries which are very powerful. This work will find a material that is like the best water, not the best, an excellent water purification matrix. Okay, so it's very important that in your abstract and also in the conclusion, you clearly say why you should be published in a good journal. What's the impact of your work? I think that's my main advice. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer. I hope I helped. I hope I gave you some ideas about good papers. Also for me, by the way, it happens that many journals reject my papers. It happens to everybody. I'm trying to have, I'm trying to give my students only projects that are new, really new, and high impact. But sometimes the editors of the journals, they don't think it's so interesting. They don't think it's such a high impact. So don't take it personally. Don't think that they don't like you. Sometimes it happens, but there's always a competition. There's many scientists in the world, and there's not so many good journals. There are many journals, but not so many very good journals. So it's hard. Okay? Yes? Look, it's all people. If somebody doesn't believe you, bad luck. If the reviewer does not believe you, but still the editor sends it to you for corrections, for revisions, then you can convince the reviewer that the experiments are real. And if he doesn't believe you, you can do more experiments, maybe a little different, and then you can try to convince the reviewer that your work, your experiments are correct. That's what you can do. Actually, it's a good point. Always when you write a paper, try to put as many references as possible for people working on the same field. Because people like to see, first of all, some people like to see their names in the reference list. And another thing is people want to see that you really was looking very carefully about what was done in the field, that you know what's going on, and you can convince why your work is so new and so interesting. So it's very important to do a very careful, very important, it's a good point that you asked that, very important to do a careful literature search and to see what what was done already. Actually, I had 1 or 2 times something that was very bad. One time, a postdoc was working on a project. Always when I gave people to start working on projects, I tell them, look, I don't know everything. You go, sit 1 week, 2 weeks, check the literature, check what was done and what was not done. So I told this guy, go and check. And he was sitting and checked, and then he came to me and he said, nobody did this. It's new, what we were thinking of doing. And then he worked 1 year, and he got interesting results. And then suddenly, after a year, we had some discussion. I asked him, he showed me some results. I asked him, go and see if somebody did something similar. And then he brought to me a paper from 3 or 4 years ago that showed almost exactly what he was doing for 1 year. So basically this guy, he didn't do a good literature search in the beginning. So he wasted 1 year of his postdoc. So I also was kind of very, not angry, but I was kind of very disappointed. Because he wasted precious time. He did good things, but we're not going to publish it because somebody did this already. And as a postdoc, postdoctorate is very bad because your time is limited. So this is actually, following your question, that's another very important advice that I can give. Before you start working on something, check what was done. And if you see that people did something similar, go to your professor and tell him, look, it doesn't look to me so new. I want something different.
Doubting. Suppose you have produced 10 data or 20 data. If he finds even 1 or 2 data is something like not reliable, so he will start doubting on every data, even if the rest of the data is.
Things happen.
Yeah. My Korean postdoc mentor, he always gives the same procedure, same reaction to some PG student to cross-examine the reproducibility of the. That also happens.
This is nice. Yes. Many reviewers don't care. Just read what you write.
Yes.
Good. So go and do the best science you can. Write next to the paper.
कितने लोग यहाँ PhD स्कॉलर हैं? Raise your hand. कितने लोग पेपर पब्लिश कर चुके हैं?
So the rest are not. What are you? You are undergraduate? Oh, masters? I see. So, but do you publish when you do masters? Do you need to publish a paper? Or even as a master's?
Project is there.
You're not so sure.
So in the 4th sem we have dissertation we have.
Okay.
So but we want to be wished to and we are
I see. Yeah. As a master you have short time, so sometimes.
It's not compulsory.
Yeah.
Publishing is not compulsory. Doing project is compulsory.
Yes.
But publications are
Okay.
sometimes.
Yes, of course. Also in my institute. Okay, but after masters you can do PhD, yeah? So you can take this advice for your PhD.
In some cases, sir, there is some retraction of the paper also.
Oh yeah. In some, yeah.
Because of, if something is really something breakthrough, they try to repeat the experiment.
Excellent. What I have seen and few days back, that they have published on chemical review papers.
Yeah.
And there, 13, 14 elements, these papers have been retracted.
Wow.
And ultimately, the chemical review paper has been retracted.
That's,
Of
course,
cross-reference.
yeah, that's bad.
Sir, I have one not doubt. Is I want to make more clear. Like some researchers, those who are working in theoretical chemistry or physical chemistry, they say means they have not good impression on impact factor. They say looping impact factor is something like worshipping false god. Even they sometimes say.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Is it really some marketing strategy or what, sir?
Look, it's a very difficult question. You know, in some fields, for example, in theoretical physics, for example, the impact factor of the journals are 3, very small, very low. And sometimes papers that get published in advanced materials, impact factor 30 or something, they're not so good. So, you know, people in general, they want some relationship. They want to have something to say, this is good and this is bad. And the impact factor gives you something to measure. The ultimate thing is you need always to read your paper. A colleague from your field reads the paper and say it's good work or bad work. So there's no answer for this. You're right. It is in many aspects. It is false god, as you say. It's a nice way to look at it. But it's very human that you always want to compare yourself or to have something. You know, this is a good thing. This is a bad thing.
And what would be better to provide more reference or less reference in a paper?
I think you don't want to have too much, too many. You don't have too little. I think it's always better to have more than less. If it's less, sometimes you miss some information. So that's my thinking.
Co-author, sir, in one critical physics paper in astronomy, I have seen 240 authors. That was the one
Wow.
collaborative. So
Yeah.
in our case, like experimental chemistry, means how much author looks like maximum.
Yeah, this is a good point. Actually, you know, in China, Chinese people, Chinese papers, you see 10 authors, 15 authors. Everybody is going into the paper. That's not good. I think you need to put 5 authors. I don't know. Put the people that really did something. Be generous. I'm always generous. This is not for a student, for you. But if somebody, a student or a colleague or somebody contributed something, put their name. But
Nowadays, they put a point that
Why you are wanting contribution?
more than 10 authors.
yeah, that's more than 10. I don't think is good. More than 7, I don't think is good. I think,
Contribution is there, then
yeah, if people did some experiment, that's my criteria. If somebody did spend time on experiments, then they can be on the paper.
So, sir, to communicate with the students, so if we want to explore some possibility for the students,
Okay.
To have some internship program,
Yeah. Okay, so the question was about opportunities in Israel for international students. So my university is very interested in international students in general. Now, because there's a war, and so now everything is low-key, hopefully in 1 year after the war, if there will be end of the war, then there will be a different things happening. Now, people in sciences, in chemistry, they're always looking for good postdocs, good students. So if you want, don't hesitate, if you want to go to Israel, of course, to do postdoctorate or even PhD sometime, you can just write. Write to the professors, find professors, write to them, and ask them if they can take you as a postdoc or as a PhD student. Now, this is something that I can really advise you. It's not only about Israel or about anywhere else, but when you write to somebody and want to show an interest in doing a postdoctorate or doing a PhD or something like that, don't send to 100 people some standard letter. You need to check people from the papers, from the web, from university sites. Find out if they're interesting for you. And when you write to them, tell them, I find your work on nanoparticles in water purification very interesting. I want to work on this. It's very important to show that you know what these people are doing. I, for example, get many applications from India, from other countries, from China, and when I see that whoever writes to me didn't really read my papers, didn't really, at least a little bit, didn't check my website, I feel that it's not serious. And then I don't answer. So this is an important advice for you if you want to go to Israel or elsewhere. Now, researchers in Israel are always looking for good postdocs and good students. So there's always opportunities. It might be more difficult sometime, but the opportunities exist. Yeah. So this is about individual thing. There are summer internship programs and also semester programs in Israel. Usually, it's university and university together. So sometimes we make an agreement with one university, MOU, one university with Ben Gurion University, with my university, to exchange students. Again, now it's very slow because of the war, but hopefully it will come back, and then maybe we can do something together, university to university.
There are some well-renowned professors like DART,
PhD, Hamburg.
Okay. Yes, exactly.
Madam Curie fellowship.
Yeah.
Is
That's.
there some fellowship in Israel?
They don't have fellowships for short visits. There are very few fellowships for postdoctorate studies usually. There are information in the university site. There is a university site for international students. And there are some information about fellowships, etc. For faculty members, not with India. Again, it's usually university.
If they have some
Yeah,
collaboration.
if they have some relationship and they make contacts, then they can do a program for exchange. Exactly, faculty exchange. But again, after my visit here, you know, maybe we'll do in the future some relationship.
That would be good.
Yeah. Yes.
So my question is, what is the benefit of doing PhD from countries apart from India? Like we see our teachers have done PhD from countries apart from India, and can we earn along with PhD? That is the best thing which we students can get. That we can earn along with PhD and we can continue with our studies.
So you're saying to do a PhD abroad, not in India? Yeah, I think it's a great thing to do PhD abroad. I myself did PhD in the United States, not in Israel. So if you can, do this.
So for that we have certain exams, or how can
No, there's no exams. Usually, again, you make contact with a faculty member, okay, by email. And you send your CV and you tell them, look, I'm interested in your science, in your research. And then the best thing, if you did something in your master's that shows that you're good, if you, and in this particular field, if you publish papers, if you went to conferences, something like that. And then it's a question of luck. You know, if you have a contact with a person that has money and he agrees or she agrees to take you for a PhD. Of course, you always need they always need to check whether you're eligible. For example, you're a chemistry master student, chemistry and biology. Okay. Sometimes they check what courses did you make in your bachelor degree, in your master's. Sometimes they tell you to have few more courses in your PhD. But usually, if you have some chemistry background, they can take you easily for chemistry PhD. In my experience, for example, over the years, I had very good Indian PhD students. I had like 3 PhD students from India, and they were excellent. One was not good. It wasn't that he was not good, but he wasn't that interested, and he left after several months. But 3, including now I have 1 PhD student from India, and she's fantastic. So it depends on the people. If you find good connections, then it can be very nice.
along with PhD, actually we have net examination with CSI and NCAT?
No, you don't need to do exams.
Yes, sir, but along with PhD, can we earn like any substitute for earning for students?
Money, you mean salary? Of course. PhD students, at least in Israel, they get fellowship from the advisor. It's like you need to live from something. So, I don't know, it's not a... I think it's good salary in Indian standards, and people in PhD students in Israel, they live from this salary. There's definitely a fellowship. For PhD, even for master students, there's a fellowship in Israel.
And they can act as the source, the instructor.
Well, it depends. Because you don't speak the language, then don't let you... Israeli PhD students can get more money as a teaching assistant because they speak the language. you don't speak, like people, you don't speak Hebrew, obviously, so they cannot do teaching assistance. There were some few cases that people, PhD students from abroad, were lab assistants. And then they can make more money. They can get higher salaries. But usually PhDs, foreign PhD students, they just get fellowship for research from their supervisor.
And even they can work in some restaurant or something somewhere else.
Well, usually, no, because you want the PhD students to invest all the time in research. But this is something that can, usually the fellowship that people get, PhD students get, foreign PhD students get, is okay for living. It's enough. And of course, there's always some prizes and awards for good students that can increase the salary. Yeah.
So while we are getting some new highlighting results and want to publish a good journal like JACS and top journals, so they are most only the editor or from reviewer we gave the question is not novel. So there is a novelty issue. So how to address that question?
That's the thing. It's very important. That's why I said about in the abstract, very important to clearly emphasize the novelty of your work. Of course, the editors of such journals, they want novelty. But that's your job to emphasize it and to explain why it is novel.
Suppose sometimes based on the reference also it is said.
Look, that's the best you can do. Maybe the editor will like it or maybe not. The best you can do is to do a good job and to explain very clearly why it is novel. And that's what you need to write in the abstract, usually.
Extremely is a good occasion that we are interacting with you.
Sure.
Just for a curiosity, so like as you are a dean of research,
Yeah.
so means yourself can have means our organization can have MOU with you, or you have to get permission from your own authority, or
Yeah, usually I don't do MOU with foreign institutions. There's another vice president for global engagement. That's her job. But I'm involved in that. It's very straightforward.
How about this Hebrew is this learning Hebrew is
Oh, learning Hebrew is very difficult. Yeah, it's a difficult language.
after Chinese the Hebrew is
Well, everybody. I think Hindi is very difficult, but it's because I wasn't born here.
like regarding MOU, we have almost similar situation because these are also former dean and head, but he is still also not capable to do
Yeah.
the same thing. Again, he has to get the permission.
Okay.
actually
Well,
everywhere administration is involved.
But US, I think professor in the US, professors they have direct
oh, really? Okay. Didn't know that.
International
international offices involved, but generally they recommend the international office. Or any questions? In US there are some chair professors, big professors, use big group
Yeah.
chair.
Who? Myself? Yeah. Okay.
I know little bit about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
So in Germany, like as a professor himself,
Yeah.
they can have that.
Yes, I guess so. Exactly. That's in Germany. In Germany, there are like kings.
I would say highly resourceful, powerful.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
So it was extremely a good discussion with all of you. So you should have some ideas, some curiosity. I think definitely you should have some curiosity regarding, and it's a really good theme, okay, about your future, what you want to do after master program, after PhD, right? Those are your master program. So what is there, like a, the destiny, what is their future going to be, right? Because in Indian system we have, after master you have to clear NET or GATE exam, just to be enrolled in the PhD program or directly qualify the DRT exam. But inside these things, we have also other opportunities, right? You should be curious, right? Like international level, what's going on, right? Like regarding your question, so if you want to go to abroad, doing PhD, so then the common exam DRE proper. Most of the students they have to qualify, like for US, for Canada, Australia. So keep in mind those things, right? Okay, I think that was a really fruitful discussion with you. Great discussion, and we thanks Professor Raj for this. And you have to be here all the time, tomorrow and after tomorrow, and just keep, writing some important tips, some important notes in your notebook, and don't forget these things easily, right? I think material probably.
No, online.
Okay, there is a link online, the YouTube link,
You can see.
and that will remain active, right? So you can watch at home also. If you have missed something, some portion, I think material will be provided to the students, right? With that, okay, we thank you, sir, for everything.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Yeah. Oh.